Who is working to defend women's sex-based rights in your country, stroke region? Do the groups get on and work together?
At the moment, I think shelters are the safest place, and those NGOs that defend women from male violence, domestic violence, they are not that inclusive like they are, for instance, in other countries. Like I know cases in Canada about was which Megan Murphy told us recently, that men and trans-identified men, they are allowed to be in shelters. So I believe that at the moment these organizations are the most defensive. They protect biological women from any invasion, but not all of them, unfortunately. And I would say at the moment we radical feminists in Russia have a lot to work at.
About 12 organisations doing this in the UK. The earliest ones that I know of out on the trans issue were We Need to Talk, started by Venice Allen, and Posy Parker came out early with her stuff. We came out on it in 2016, and then the Lesbian Rights Alliance and the Get the L Out campaign were about then as well. And a lot of people we got a lot of stick for it. We've got a lot of stick also for talking to right-wingers. And a lot of people who started off a lot later, great organisations, really support them. People like the LGB Alliance here in UK. They won't talk to us because they won't talk to any organisation who has shared a platform with a right-wing person. So I think there are some difficulties in working together. We try to collaborate with everybody. We know we can't agree with everybody, but we try and collaborate with everybody. There are many organisations who are quietly supportive and see the trans issue for what it is, but they're worried about their funding streams and they're worried about their reputations, so they won't come out publicly. And I think that is an issue because it means that they look to the outside world as if they don't agree with us. But because of keeping people employed, then they feel they can't. I would like to see them be a little braver sometimes.
Yeah, the foremost one in the US, I believe, is WOLF, Women's Liberation Front. And they are working, they're the only feminist organization that's putting forth a radical feminist critique in the upper echelons of our government, in the judiciary, in the courts, both in state and federal, and before Congress, and before the administration, both the Obama and current DT administration. I don't want to say his name. And they're also doing webinars on the sports issues with the Connecticut girls. They did a webinar, and with the ACLU lawsuit, they just did one 2 days ago, a webinar about that. The ACLU not supporting women's sports, and they've also actually been to the Supreme Court with an amicus brief, and of course they get criticized, as Jan was saying, they get criticized for cooperating and working, taking platforms from the Heritage Foundation and any other kind of right-wing, especially right-wing Christian organizations. They take a lot of flack. Hands Across the Aisle, which is formed by a radical lesbian feminist, Miriam Ben Shalom, and Kaylee Triller-Haber Harms, who is a right-wing Christian woman, and Hands Across the Aisle to work together on this one issue of gender identity ideology and the lie that it is. And they're doing a great work. And then we have WLRN, which is the Women's Liberation Women's Liberation WLRN, Women's Liberation Radio Network. And Thistle, you had Thistle on last week, and she's very involved in that and a co-founder of that. And then there's FIST, which is Feminist in Struggle. And they are making amendments to the proposed Equality Act, though I'm not sure if they go far enough. And I want to just say quickly, you've had Kara Dansky on here before too, and she's one of the lawyers in WOLF that's doing a lot of that work. So we've got a lot going on, a lot of organizations that I'm grateful for.
Great, thanks very much. I think it's Women's Liberation Radio News. That's what's so That's right. So just in case they
Okay,
muzzle,
thank you.
Yeah, as I said, the situation in Ukraine with all this organization is pretty poor. We don't have much of the organization. For example, my city doesn't really have any feminist organizations at all, like only organization against domestic violence, which is not like feminist one, just the shelter that gives lures and stuff and the place to stay. So we have only LGBTQ plus and all this stuff organization, and sometimes they allow women to cooperate and do some kind of groups and maybe meetings under their organization, under their protections. But of course, it's spreading liberal ideology, trans ideology, and of course, it's not like a, like a network itself is under something. So in Odessa, we have Queer House, which by the name we can clearly hear which ideology it's praising. And under this organization, we have like a small group of, like a feminist small group. They have talks sometimes and so on. And that's a very big issue here in Ukraine, so that women can't really come and gather somewhere and just talk in male-free spaces. Because I'm personally not aware of any male-free spaces in Ukraine. Maybe there are some, but very hidden, like a secure, very, very secure spaces, but not vocal.